Right, I've taken it out, I've had a look at it and it feels really nice, but just to show you, I'm just going to move this now, just to the side, okay, keep that out of the way. That in itself will be quite a nice pen to hold. I've got that there, it could probably have done to being a little bit longer, but again, we've got a finite piece of wood that we have to deal with. The next one, I might actually chop the wood a little bit longer and I might leave a little bit of a longer taper, but obviously the whole thing depends on the size of the actual pen blanks. Now, there's a little bit of a flat here which is going to need taking down. That I like the sharpness of, and I like the way that scoops out. Obviously the last few things that I'm going to do, I think I might leave that there even though it juts a little bit above the spacer there. But what I might do is I might see how that starts to shape up now. Now, obviously when you're turning, you need to make sure that you are safe. When you're sanding, it's a little bit more difficult. What I've done is I've removed the actual rest out the way, and I'm going to use some fairly hefty glass paper just to make a start. Now this, again, because the wood's hard and the grain's very fine, we don't want to do it too enthusiastically, because what's going to happen is it's going to take too much off. Now I'm using a bit of glass paper that's not cloth backed, it's just paper backed, because obviously again if it grabs and it was cloth backed, it might get wrapped around and cause a health and safety problem. The fact that this is paper backed, obviously that would just tear and it would be flung underneath the vise. It's very important when you are doing this to make sure you know where your hands are. Obviously make sure you are very, very careful here, because you are holding your hands next to the working parts of the lathe, and again, just turn this on, you need to really pay more attention to where your hands are than where the glass paper is. The glass paper will do the job itself, as long as you are being as careful as you can, then you should be okay. Now I'm just going to thin that down a little bit because it's a little bit too wide. I'm not taking too much off at first, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to keep that shape here. Now although this looks dangerous, it's actually quite safe. We would never try and do it the other way on top, because obviously if it did grab, then you've got a health and safety issue where your hands will be flung backwards. Here, if anything happens, the glass paper will just go that way. So I'm just very carefully starting off with this coarse grit glass paper, trying to get that nice ergonomic shape there. Later on what I will do is I'll actually start to move on to the finer glass paper there so that I can get the shape that I want. What I want to do as well is with this part here, I want to try and use the stiffness of the glass paper almost to shape it so I can, when I'm sanding, keep that shape that I want and keep that nice sharp point. It's important when you're sanding to keep stopping and checking that the shape is fine. Now, you probably can't see this, but the fact that this glass paper is very coarse, it's starting to put an awful lot of marks into my work. And if we stop this and just have a quick test, we can see that although the work looks really nice, I can see that it's quite rough, and you can see the sanding marks here. So what I might do now is I might work on just an old piece of glass paper and then start to remove even the finer details. What we want to do is sand it and get rid of the sanding marks. But what we will eventually do is we'll probably apply a finish while it's actually on here. Whether that's a wax finish or whether that's an epoxy base finish, I don't know yet. Now you should be able to see there's an awful lot of very fine sawdust coming off now, okay? And I'm just trying to be careful that I don't remove that sharp piece there, because I want to keep that as part of my design. I'm quite happy with the way this is progressing actually. Oh, that's really nice. You can start to see that some of the grain is actually coming through. This ebony is starting to lighten a little bit, and you can see the differences between the darker blank and the actual finished piece of wood. I've just noticed a flat part there that would need to be redone. So what I'm going to do probably is move back onto the coarse glass paper. I think this one is probably just about there. There's a little bit of a splitting there, but I think that's probably going to be able to be sanded out. And that won't be seen when we get the actual pen blanks in. Okay, so but I'm a little bit concerned about that. Obviously, that flat part there is one of the things that would be noticeable. So I'm just going to take that out. I'm going to get my coarse glass paper again, and I'm just going to start and try and remove that. And as I said before, it's very good to check, very important to check, even when you're sanding at every stage, because you don't want something that's going to stand out when you've finished as being an imperfection. Problem is, when you make things and people look at them, their eye is immediately drawn to the mistakes. It's just the way people are, unfortunately. And what you're trying to do is manufacture something that, again, looks professional and has no blemishes, so that people can't pick fault with it. They may dislike your design, but at least they won't be able to tell you that it's technically wrong. What I'm trying to do here, I don't know whether you can see, I'm trying to just reduce with the glass paper this part here. Again, I'm pressing on a little bit more with the glass paper, and obviously that's creating a little bit of friction, so my finger's getting a little bit hotter here. Being a little bit careful. Just double check that imperfection has gone. The grain pattern is really starting to come up now. You can see the actual grain there. It's absolutely looking fantastic. And that imperfection's gone now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the medium and just get that back to where it was. Once I'm happy with that, I can go on to the next stage. Maybe even with a finer glass paper, or something else like a rag and a little bit of wax. I'm actually quite pleased with that. It's a really nice shape. Feels very comfortable. I've got quite large hands, so again, that's probably just slightly in the wrong place, but I'm actually quite happy with that, because I think once I get the actual pen in, that will elongate the whole product, and that should be a lot more comfortable there, and that should rest against my actual hand as I write. Okay, right, let's think about finishing.